to take a deep breath. I'm getting ready for bed, and I'm thinking about the Michael movie. I'm a Gen Xer, so from the time I was 3 years old all the way up until ever since I could remember, and that's a very long time, I've been a fan of Michael Jackson, and I saw his catapult into superstardom all the way to the decline when the first accusations surfaced. And all I could remember about that time, and when I first really became a fan of his, was like in 1983. Human Nature. That was the first song that really stuck with me at that time. My first recollection as a 3-year-old, and I also grew up in a musical household, Michael Jackson was the thing. Michael Jackson, Prince, and Bob Marley. Those three were definitely on heavy rotation in my household. And I just remember that album, I remember it being on heavy rotation all the way up until 1985. From 1983, as far back as I could remember, I was 3 years old at the time. I just remember that video being in heavy rotation on MTV. And now we come to find out that Michael Jackson fought to be on MTV and fought for his music and his artistic vision to be played on MTV. Because MTV was really, at the time, specifically for hard rock, classic rock, yacht rock. I'm talking about genres that were part of the MTV scene back in the early 80s. And then you had the new wave from the UK with a mixture of punk rock bands to synth pop bands made their migration to the United States, and a lot of their music were played on MTV. And I could go through all of the different rock groups back in that day, but that's a topic for another day. Michael Jackson, from that Thriller album, he was on go from there. He had all these endorsements and all these people that wanted a piece of him. After that Billie Jean performance was aired, Motown 25, the 25th anniversary, after that was aired, and back then, this man was on go from that time, and everybody in that music industry wanted a piece of him. And people were throwing endorsement deals at him, money. We all know about the Pepsi endorsement that, he significantly was like a spokesperson for freaking Pepsi. So there's commercials and everything to prove it. But anyway, I digress. This man had heavy security around him. I'm talking about he had his own foot soldiers in every different country he went to. Michael Jackson went to Moscow. He went to places like Russia. He had people fainting for him all over the world. But here's the thing. What I'm starting to believe, knowing what I know about Michael Jackson coming up and all his accomplishments and his downfall, or what the mass media did to him, it's very clear to me that Michael Jackson was not only an empath, he's the quintessential definition of a chosen one. From the age of 5 years old, this little boy was performing. He had a father with a heavy hand. He came from Gary, Indiana, which is literally like a hand-to-mouth town. His father is making him perform, and they're performing night after night, practicing day after day. I mean, The amount of pressure on these kids, like they were destined to be great. They were like the blueprint for New Edition. They're hired by Motown, first of all, which is home to the Supremes, home to the Temptations. Barry Gordy, Diana Ross, and Smokey Robinson. That's the music label that Michael Jackson and his brothers were signed to. And they became so big that they went from the late 60s and they dominated the 70s. And then you had that one Michael Jackson coming out and catapulted to fame in the 80s. He rose from a child star, went out on his own, pursued his own interests and his own identity outside of his family, only to suffer from vitiligo, suffer from lupus. His head was so badly burnt to where he had permanent nerve damage, and then had to wear prosthetics and wigs on his head for the rest of his life. And he still went on to perform. He still went on to sell millions. He still went on to break records. He still went on to be the most generous philanthropist, even made the Guinness Book of World Records for it. He bought the Beatles catalog before Bad, and during the time, or between the time of the drop of Thriller and the drop of Bad, he bought the Beatles catalog to only go on, when Bad came out, to get 5 #1 singles on a single album and, not win a single Grammy at all. And then the child molestation thing happens. He's ripped apart and torn through the media, like both him and his family villainized and put under the microscope. Keeping in mind, this man did not have a childhood. He did not grow up. Dick Gregory, may he rest in peace, said he didn't even bounce a ball. Michael Jackson did not have a chance to be a kid. So imagine you're on all the time, because Michael Jackson had to be on at every minute. That's why he is the greatest entertainer. Captain EO, Moonwalker, and Michael Jackson's ghost. Okay? Period. As a black kid growing up in Brooklyn, I didn't see anything like Michael Jackson. And I'm not trying to exalt him in any way, because he's still a human being, but this is why I'm calling him a chosen one. I never in my life saw a black man amass that amount of fame, to a point where, and I'm going to tell you how serious this is, to a point where, imagine you had the civil rights in the 60s, then you had black exploitation in the 70s, and this is a black man being invited to the White House by then President Ronald Reagan in the era of the crack epidemic. Why you think Michael Jackson wrote songs about healing the world and man in the mirror and all that? During the 80s was a turbulent time in of itself. So even in the movie, there's a part where you see Jafar Jackson, Michael Jackson's nephew. He's in the studio, and there's a news clip of the conflict between the Crips and the Bloods. And all those things were happening during that time in the 80s. The whole crack epidemic, the gang epidemic, with Michael Jackson being as sensitive as he was, those things that he saw during the 80s curated his music sense, his creativity. A lot of his creativity really happened in the 80s. Off the Wall was what, 1979? You had Thriller that was released in the 80s. Then you had Bad that was released in the 80s. And between Thriller and Bad, those two albums really catapulted Michael Jackson to the top. So that's what I could remember about him. But imagine going through all of that, having to be a celebrity, working at an optimal level. At an optimal level. He was working to a point where he would be in the studio, he would be going to a photo shoot, he would be handling his own outside business, doing songwriting, all of that, to actually practicing his dance moves on his off time. That's how much of a perfectionist he was. That's exactly why his nephew Jafar Jackson had to work that hard. What a lot of people don't know about Michael Jackson is he is a fantastic sketch artist. The man could draw. Here's the thing. Artists are very raw. They're raw with their feelings, and a lot of artists, whether you're a painter, whether you're a singer, you're a performer, you're a dancer, you are a rap artist, a lot of the creativity comes from the soul, and it's very raw. A lot of their creativity come out of pain, come out of suffering, come out of things that they're witnessing and what they're trying to process around them, because they're very sensitive human beings. Artists, empaths, they're very sensitive human beings. Chosen ones are very sensitive human beings. Empaths who are very sensitive to the energies around them are very sensitive human beings. So when you have somebody like Michael Jackson who operated from his soul, and then you have artists like that pretty much died tragically. Some of the best artists died tragically. Let's start with Michael Jackson. Amy Winehouse, Kurt Cobain from the rock band Nirvana, Donny Hathaway, who became so struck with schizophrenia and madness that he threw himself off of a building in Manhattan, I think it was. Tupac, Biggie, all artists who were great at their crafts but died very tragically. I believe that Michael Jackson unequivocally is a chosen one.